Welcome to the Electrified Mind Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Isaac. The interview that you're going to be hearing today is part of our Vulnerability and Authenticity series. Some of the guests that have agreed to be part of this series have shared their stories in the past. Some of them have written books about their stories. Others are sharing their stories for the first time. This series is intended to give us courage. If other people can be vulnerable, let that show us that it's okay to be us. Yeah, there's going to be some people that judge us. Yeah, there's going to be some people that reject us. Yeah, there's going to be some people that exit our tribe. And so what? We can't escape being who we are. And that's what this series is intended to do. To encourage, to inspire, to motivate, to empower everyone involved in this series, whether you're listening or whether you're a guest, to just be you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the ElectrifiedMind.com podcast, your direct access to the top life coaches, inspirational and motivational leaders of our world. Be prepared to eradicate your doubts, fears, and toxic energy as we electrify your mind for success at ElectrifiedMind.com. On today's show, we have a motivational speaker who's not here today as a motivational speaker. I'm a motivational speaker too, and we get caught up in this world where, as motivational speakers, we tend to be the people that look like we have everything together and that our lives are perfect, and they're not. And so I have a guest today that's willing to share his story with us, be vulnerable and authentic with us. I'm privileged to introduce as a guest on our show today, Bobbi Berg. Bobbi, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm so pumped to be here.
And I'm so pumped that you're here, my friend. So let me just say that I admire you for being courageous enough and brave enough to come on the show as a motivational speaker and to point out that you're a human being. And I think that's such an important aspect of what we do, that we can show other people that we have the same struggles. We just tend to have the tools to overcome these struggles. But I'd like you to just take us back to your earliest memory. You can start wherever you'd like and share your story with us. Would you please?
Yeah, of course. Honestly, one of my earliest memories, I had to be probably 3 or 4 years old. And my family and I, it was my mom, my Aunt Chris, my grandmother, and I'm sure there were various other family members there. But we were at a park. And the idea was that we were going to go and have a good time and my two cousins were there, and again, growing up, I was an only child. So my two cousins and I are essentially brother and sister because we just got that close. And I remember we were at this park, and everything was going really well. We were just going to spend a fun day at the park. And we decided, there's food going, and we're like, oh, this is awesome. Everything's fun. And I remember for the first time in my life, the actual feeling of being carefree. I didn't care what was going on. We were just running around, or we were stopping to get something to eat, and then we go back to running around, and then we'd be at the playground. And it was just such an amazing experience. And then out of nowhere, it started pouring down rain. And we didn't have a tent set up. We didn't have anything ready, and I didn't have a change of clothes. So my mom's sitting there freaking out, going, oh my God, he's going to get wet. He's going to get sick. What is he going to do? And I didn't care. I just kept running. I just wanted to keep having a good time. And it was looking back on it, I'm so thankful that I was able to experience that kind of moment and remember it, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays don't remember what it's like to actually be carefree, to actually not have a worry in the world except for what you are doing in that exact moment, just to enjoy it. And honestly, my next memory after that, I don't really remember much until I was around 5 years old, somewhere in that ballpark. My mom, so to all of our listeners, as you know, I'm sure Phil has informed you on, this is going to get pretty deep pretty quickly. I don't really think much of the story because I've lived it, but for a lot of my students that have listened to my podcast, to my buddies that I've told this to literally anyone that's heard this story is not the best. But you've been warned. I remember when I was 5 years old, my mom struggled with drug addiction pretty hard. I remember moving from house to house, from city to city, from home to home all the time growing up. And to me, I didn't know any better. I thought that was normal. You know, I would never be in a school for any longer than, I think the longest was 6 months. And we would just jump from school to area because my mom didn't have a house. She was living with friends. She was living with just other people. And I remember at one of the houses we were at, this is crazy because bringing this up, you just sparked this memory that I haven't thought about it has to be at least 10 years. So my dad was never in the picture. My dad left my mother before I was born. I don't remember exactly I don't know what happened, but the only thing I've been able to piece together is they got into a huge fight. He beat her up pretty badly, kicked her in the stomach while I was still inside her, and then left, and haven't heard from him since. Well, we were at this guy's house. I don't remember his name, but we were there, and I remember I got back from school that day, and I was hungry because I didn't go with lunch because we couldn't afford it. And we were just kind of hanging out, and people were hanging out in the bathroom, like the adults. I didn't know what was going on, but my mom would come out, pour me a bowl of cereal because I was hungry, and she'd say, hey, just eat. Don't worry about what's going on over there. Everything's fine. And I said, okay. And then she'd go in the bathroom, and 20 minutes later, she'd come back outside. And she'd forgotten that she'd already given me a bowl of cereal, so she would pour me another bowl and say, oh, just stay out here. Everything's fine. Just don't worry about what's going on in this room. I'm like, okay. All right, that's fine. So then she goes back in and comes out a half hour later. And I'm noticing that every time she comes outside, something's wrong. Like, I didn't know what was going on exactly, but I noticed she was just acting funny. And the one rule was I was not allowed to get up from that chair. So I've been sitting in this chair for like an hour, and I'm a kid. And I'm sure anybody that has kids, you know how fun it is trying to get your kid to sit down and just relax, right? That doesn't happen. And something went haywire during this whole excursion, because all of a sudden the door flies open, 2 guys fly out, and I look at the ground and there's blood all over the ground. And it wasn't blood in the sense of like someone had their face split open, but it's like, you cut your finger pretty deeply and a decent amount of blood spurts out, and you look and you go, oh, that's blood on the ground. Okay. And I had no idea what was going on, but everyone started yelling. People were fighting. Punches were being thrown. There's 4 people kind of kicking this one guy on the ground. And I'm sitting there not really knowing what to do, but I remember I was terrified. And because my mom was high as a kite, she walks over and she just goes, no, just eat your cereal. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I was like, Mom, I'm scared. I want to go home. And she couldn't put together that I was uncomfortable and that I didn't feel safe. And she just kept telling me everything's fine, everything's fine. Well, eventually, this fight moves over from the bathroom to the kitchen, and we were in a studio apartment, so that was maybe all of 5 feet. And one of the guys hurled into the table, and everything just got knocked off. I got knocked out of my chair, and my mom kind of fell on top of me, and she goes, no, it's okay, everything's fine, you're safe, don't worry. And I remember looking at it was kind of like I had an out-of-body experience, because I kind of sat there, and I'm looking up at the ceiling on the ground. There are people fighting all around me, and people are yelling. I can see that there's blood on the ground, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, something is wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't know why this is happening, but I'm not supposed to feel this way. I don't just feel scared right now. The instinct part of my body said, listen, you might die here. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I was like, you need to get out of here. And fortunately, the neighbors heard what was going on and kind of, just waltzed into the room and saw me on the ground, saw my mom on top of me, and saw people fighting and lost it. And this really big guy, he had to be I don't know how tall he actually was, but for my 5-year-old self, he looked like he was 20 feet tall. He was a very large guy. He comes over and starts ripping people off left and right. And he goes, do you see what's going on here? There is a kid on the ground. I don't care what is going on. Why are you doing this? Stop. And he pulled everyone off, and everyone kind of cooled off. And everyone that was involved in the altercation left, except me. My mom just kind of took me and laid me down on the couch and said, everything's all right. I'll make sure you're safe. Just stay here and go to bed. And truthfully, I've never felt more vulnerable in my life than that moment, because I don't think vulnerable is the word I want to use there. I don't think I've ever felt more hopeless than that moment, because your mom is supposed to take care of you. Your parents are the ones that are entrusted to keep you safe at all times, no matter what. And in the span of maybe a half hour, I did not feel safe. I did not feel protected. I didn't feel like I should be where I was at. And I think for a long time, I think about this memory, and it makes me remember that I wasn't scared. I was scared, but it made me feel powerful, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The beauty, thank you so much for sharing that. We'll go into some other things about your life too, but I just want to say that being vulnerable and being authentic, which you're being right now, and sharing this story about your childhood, it connects us. The last time I saw my real father, I was 4 years old. And I'm curious to ask you this. Did it ever affect you that you didn't know your real father?
Ooh, team, that was a fantastic episode, y'all. Sorry to leave you on such a cliffhanger, but tune in next week, and I promise we are going to dive deep, deep into the answer. Hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace! Whew, that was another awesome episode of the Student Fire Podcast. Thank y'all for sticking around for this long, but I got a question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? See, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions, like how do I record an episode? How do I get my show to apps? Like, do I have to do it individually, or can I just have one place that does everything for me? And most importantly, how do I make money from my podcast? Is that even an option? Well, honestly, y'all, your answer is Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it is 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors that want to advertise on your podcast. Yes, you. That means you can get paid to make the podcast. You can get paid to podcast the right way. In fact, that's exactly what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. If you want to get in on this, if you want to make your podcast a reality, and you want your success and your word to be a thing, man, you already know. Hop over to Anchor and give it a start. You won't regret it. Catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.
I am excited to bring you my new book, Trendsetter, 7 Steps to Radically Stand Out to Be the Best You. This book details my journey of coming to the United States and being excited to embrace the American culture. But unfortunately, my culture was not accepted, and I found myself being bullied as a young girl. And in this process, I decided that I wanted to disconnect from my culture to be more accepted into American culture. And through that process, I got so depressed from trying to fit in that I attempted suicide my freshman year in high school. So this book talks about the journey of what I did to become radically transformed, to be the strong woman I am today. This book is something that's really going to enable the reader to understand and embrace who they are, embrace what makes them special, and become radically transformed. Get your copy today at becomingatrendsetter.com. Again, that is becomingatrendsetter.com, or check it out at my website at aishathomas.org.
I am so excited for you to be right here with me today. Look, let me tell you why. Because when I was growing up, I just felt like my father wasn't the father he should have been. The schools done pushed us out. My mom's wasn't there, right? The churches didn't get involved. And also, for the neighbors, Well, it don't take a village to raise a child. So I dived into sports, basketball, baseball, football, and I was always Mr. MVP in all of them. So now in my 30s, right, I'm taking sports and I'm taking everything that happened in sports, baseball, basketball, football, and I'm just molding it into this piece of candy. And I birthed the concept of champion fire. So yeah, now you have a place to hang out. So from this point forward, every Monday morning at 4 a.m., I need you here with me, hanging out, speaking over life, speaking over everything that goes on in your life, coming from the perspective of sports. I need you here, and let's knock this ball out the park together.
Guys, did you realize that 1 out of 4 children do not have fathers in their home? Man, that is mind-boggling. But on the flip side, that means 3 out of 4 children have dads in their home. But are they really present? Are they engaged? Are they active? Are they invested in their kids' lives? Are they being dads? Are they truly fulfilling their duty as fathers? And this got me thinking, man, it'd be a great opportunity to create a podcast where we can explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and the successes of being a dad. Join me every Monday at 4 a.m. as we explore fatherhood on Father's Fire, another phenomenal podcast that's part of the Speak Fire family.